Alright, well, I have this Ruger American here in 30-06, and I got this almost a year ago, about 10 or 11 months. I even have a past video on it. I got it just before deer season. Got a pretty good deal on it. So I went in and picked it up, put a Vortex scope on it, took it out to the range, sighted it in, and have been very pleased with it. It's shooting very well, and took it out a couple of times hunting, and it's, I'm for the price, I'm very pleased with this rifle. You know what I mean? It's I guess it's classified as a budget rifle, right? But the way it shoots and the reliability of it, I'm sure it's going to be very reliable. It's a great deal, But I was always, I was always asking myself, even on the past videos, it's like, well, do I want to upgrade this? Do I want to go through that same process and, upgrade the stock, pillar bed it, or do I want to keep the composite stock, right? Because this stock is not that bad, Sure, it has that hollow sound. I mean, the good things about it, the stock, it's stiff enough where it doesn't twist around like some I've felt before. The ones on the Savage axis, yeah, you just about have to switch those out. I mean, that stock just bent back and forth, But this one, it's fairly stiff, and it's lightweight. It's easy to carry around. But given that this is a 30-06, I mean, there is a lot of recoil that you feel, especially out on the range. I'm sure when you're hunting, it'll recoil, but you're not focused on the recoil, right? You're focused on the deer or whatever you're hunting, and you only take one or two shots. At a range, yeah, I mean, you start to feel it. But this stock, it's lightweight, so you do feel the recoil. It does have a nice recoil pad on it, which softens the blow a little bit. But I decided, well, with a 30-06, I think I'm going to go ahead and switch the stock. Do my deal where I'm going to put it on a Boyds stock and, put pillars on it and bed it if need be. And we'll go that route since it is a 30-06. I do want a bang around gun. I want to keep the synthetic stock, but I think I have a Thompson center compass in a 6.5 Creedmoor that I'll probably keep that one with the composite stock and keep that as my bang around gun. And when I say that, it's like, I'll take that one out if it's bad weather, and where I'm not going to have to worry about exposing a really nice stock or wood stock or something like that out, in the rain or mud or whatever, or in heavy, brambles, thickness, and all, and all that stuff. So in the 6.5 Creedmoor, there's much less recoil on it, so the lighter stock is okay. When you take that one out to the range and you shoot, it's like, man, I can shoot this all day. It's and I really like that rifle, so I think I'm going to keep the Thompson center compass stock like that, and keep the synthetic stock on it, because it was actually pretty nice too. It has a different feel to it, a different look to it. Some guys hate the look of it, but who cares? I mean, it's performing really well. I've been very happy with the gun, and I like that round. But in this case, this is the classic 30-06, and I'm going to go ahead and upgrade the stock here. In this case, I'll probably be showing this. This is what it looks like before, and I'll show you how it looks when I'm done, and show you what I added to it. And we'll see the results. I'll take it out to the range, and we'll make sure it's all sighted in the way it should be, and and it'll be ready to go, and I'll show you how it looks and how it turned out. If you want to see how I do this, you know, because I'm going to, you know, have to drill out the stock, place the pillars in there, you know, put the lugs, mount everything in, and I'll test everything. I'll test the V blocks on there and make sure they're seated properly. I'll bed it down if I need to. If you want to see all that, I'll have it on a separate video, and these will be private videos. You know, sorry I have to do that, but with YouTube they have their restrictions, and I don't want the video to be banned or demonetized and all that good stuff, you know. So all of my actual gunsmithing videos are going to be private, you know, and to do that, it's just getting on Patreon and becoming a patron. It's not going to cost that much at all. I'm not greedy about it, but that's the plan. So if you want to see all that stuff, I'll be transferring a lot of my gunsmithing videos that have been, you know, blocked before, and that way, you know, if you want to see how all this stuff is done, what I'm doing, I mean, you'll have access to it, right? So that being said, I'm going to get started on this, and we'll show you what it looks like after it's done. I'll show you. Where's the stock? This is the one I chose. I chose Boyds again. I was looking at some different stock at one point, but decided to go ahead and go with Boyds again. And I like this color. This is the same color I used on one of my Savage Axis builds, and I really liked it. It was a tough choice. I like this one, and I like the Heritage in the nutmeg color. It was a tough choice, but I think this will turn out pretty nice when it's done. All right, and you can see everything here. Boyd stock. It comes with you can see all the hardware, the V block here. There's the trigger guard. Let's see. And this is something new. You can see in the past I've gotten Boyd stocks and it did not come with all this stuff. Now it looks like they're actually including a bedding kit. Alright, I'm kind of surprised at that. So Pro Bed 2000 in the curing agent, and then the mold release wax that you put on everything. So that's good. I will be using this, you know, and I thought that was interesting, but I also see it's interesting that this bag was opened. Right? I mean, I got a good deal on this, and hopefully it wasn't just a return or because it was damaged somehow, but I don't see any problem with it. But we'll find out, you know, and if I find any problems while I'm, you know, during the project, I'll have it on the videos that you can see on Patreon, and we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, I'm going to get started on this. I'll show you how it looks after it's done, and we'll take it to the range. All right. So I'm out here at the range. I brought the rifle. This is the Ruger American after putting on the stock, and it's going to be just a real quick. I'm not going to, you know, I just want to make sure that it's still sighted in, because I know I left the scope mounted while I did all this work and bedding and everything. So it'll be cool to see if it's still dead on, or I'm sure it's going to move around a little bit, you know, but the scope was pretty secure. So I just want to come out here and test fire it, get a good feel. You know, it's going to feel different for sure, even if it just if it just shoots the same, if I get the same groupings, that's fine with me. I mean, it was shooting well to begin with. So the main thing I did with this is just for the feel, just maybe the recoil will, won't feel as bad, just adding a little weight to it, right? So that's about it. Once we get started here, I'll just set it up and we can take some shots and see the results. So there's the rifle ready to go. The same vortex scope, as you can see, and you can see I'm using the same ammo as I had before. This is the same stuff, even the same batch. So there's the ammo that I used, and I was comparing the ballistics on them. This is the Federal, and it's showing here. Well, let's take a look at the velocity, muzzle velocity, 2900. Energy 2801, and that's the muzzle. Then 100 yards, 2674. So here is the Winchester. Now this Federal stuff is, so it's a bonded soft point. It has a boat tail design. The Winchesters, so this is an extreme point, so it has a polymer tip on it. Ballistic profile, but you can see this is not a boat tail. But then looking at the muzzle velocity, 2920, so it's just about the same, just 20 more. Energy 2830, what does that say, 39? So they're almost identical, and they are both 150 grain. The Precision Hunter, now I've always wanted to try this too. So this is the Precision Hunter 178 grain ELDX. So much heavier bullet. And when I'm looking at the specs here, so it has that polymer tip on it, and it's a boat tail. And looking at, let's see, the muzzle velocity, 2750, so it's a little lower, but of course it's a heavier bullet, so it doesn't show here, but I'm sure the muzzle energy is going to be much higher than what it's showing on these 150s, and that's to be expected, nothing new. So say if it's and they're both all showing zeroing in at 200 yards. So at 300 yards drops 7.7, 300 yards drops 7.4, and 7.5. So they're just about equal, but of course this is going to drop a little more because it's a heavier bullet. So it's to be expected. I just really wanted to compare these and see how they did. Didn't do much shooting with it at all, but we'll be able to compare apples to apples here. And like I said, I'm really expecting it to shoot the same. I just want to get a good feel. I think it's going to feel much better, right? A little more heft to it, and so that's where we'll be setting up out there. And then once the shooting starts, it'll probably get pretty noisy out here. We've got half a dozen guys already show up, and we just opened up. So, all right, so I was setting up there in booth number 13, lucky number 13, and this is at the 100-yard range. Now I was going to set up at the 200-yard spots, but a lot of guys were showing up, and they must have had some kind of club or something, and they started taking up all the 200-yard spots, and I gave mine up. So this guy said, "Yeah, go ahead. I'll set up at the 100-yard spot, no problem." Because after all, I do most of my hunting in East Texas, and it's usually very heavily wooded, and I usually don't get anything over 100 yards. Very rare.
Well, interesting to get used to.
So I just took my time setting up and using their bags, and I didn't bring my stand. And I could tell off that very first shot that that the recoil was actually didn't feel that bad. It's I guess it's more manageable, I guess you could say. And so I decided just to do groups of 3 for the 3 different ammos, and I didn't want to do a whole lot more because, you know, with the ammo shortage and everything, I just want to make sure that I'm set for the hunting season, and should be no problem. So I just did groups of 3, except for the very first shot. I decided to I treated that as the first cold barrel shot, and I wanted to see if it was going to be off at all, right? But after all the handling with the scope during the bedding process and everything, I mean, it didn't budge. The scope held true, so that was fantastic. So I just proceeded to shoot the 3 round groups and to see how it would compare to last year's. Alright, had some pretty good results, and as expected they're almost the same as they were before, right? Maybe a little better. I'll show you why. So we were out there, and you can see, I guess you couldn't see the wind, but it was coming from the south, but it was swirling big time when we were out there putting up the targets. You know, I was watching the flag, and mainly it was, you know, it was showing it was coming from the south, and all of a sudden a gust would come by and poof, it would just switch directions. So it was just swirling big time, but it wasn't too hard to manage because, you know, for the most part it was pretty steady, right? You just had to pay attention and make sure you didn't fire off during one of the gusts. But so this was the first target. This was the top target. And I used it just 4 shots. One was just the cold bore sight, you know, shot, whatever. And then the next 3, pop, 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 you know. And I was getting about 1.1. Nope. It matters which 3 I was measuring off of. It was either 0.9 to 1.1, so it's pretty close to 1 inch. And I think that's what I did last time. Well, I'll compare once I get through with this. So that came out as expected. And keep in mind too, I did not have to touch the scope. This was shooting a little to the right, but you know, the elevation was dead nuts on. I was trying to get from, you know, about 1.5 inches above, you know, shooting at 100 yards. So this should be dead on at 200 yards, right? So those were coming out good. And then I went to the Winchesters, and it wasn't a bad little group either, you know. So we're still looking at the 1.5 inches, you know, 1 inch to 1.5 inches up. It was a little more centered, and I got a 1.2 inch. Then switched over to the Hornady, and I think this one did better than the previous shots. But you can see it's still right in the same range, you know. It should be pretty much dead on at 200 yards. This one's slightly to the right. This one was just about centered, you know, and this one's just slightly to the right. And a lot of this, and you can say, yeah, because the wind was gusting, you know, I was trying to pay close attention to what was going on with the wind, and of course it could be me, right? So any variations on that, You know, it's just, you know, I'm not a perfect shooter, but I thought these turned out pretty good. Yeah, just considering that I did all the work on this without removing the scope. I just, you know, left it seated, and it's solid, right? It didn't have to do any adjustments to the scope. I think the patterns, when you look at these, they're much more consistent between the brands of the off-shelf ammo. So looking at this, it's like, well, I'm pretty confident that I could use just grab a box of ammo off the shelf, and I'll have a good idea of what it's going to do, right? It's they turned out pretty good. Sure, a couple of them were just a bit over 1 inch, but for what I'm going to do with it for hunting deer, it's great. I think it'll be perfect. It's a consistent shooter, and the biggest thing too is the feel. When I'm out there on the range this time, I was like, okay, it's a good solid feel. It still has you notice the recoil, but it doesn't have that sharp feel to it. You know, with the added weight, the added bulk, you can really tell the difference. And it helped where so now when I'm shooting with it, I'm not flinching. I know what to expect. So overall, I think it turned out great. I'm really, really happy with the gun, and the modifications were, just exactly what I was trying to do with it, right? I guess the only other thing I might do is still put a different recoil pad on it, because I was out there with a t-shirt and it wasn't bad, right? So there's no big rush on it. I still might do it, but you consider, by the time deer season comes by and it's all cold, I'm going to have a lot of, padding, as far as, a thick coat and all that good stuff. So it's not that big of a deal, right? Maybe a nice to have one of these days I might do it, but that's it. So the testing came out good. The rounds came out good. I was able to, I just got out there, fired them off, and didn't have to adjust anything, right? Has a good feel to it, so I'm really, really happy with this build. Well, I guess that's it, Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Go to Patreon, and if you're interested to see what I did and how I do all the modifications, yeah, and then feel free to get on Patreon, and just a few bucks will probably do it, and you'll have access to all my gunsmithing videos. So, well, that's it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.